good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Coffee with the Coach. You know, I had a nice surprise this morning when I woke up. I actually got an email from somebody who went to one of my sites, askthecoachrightnow.com, and asked me a question, which is always really neat because you can find out, who's actually been tuning into you and also see what's important to them. So this is what she says. She says, simple question here, how do I become successfully well-rounded? Well, it's a great question, and there's probably two parts to that question. The first part, what does well-rounded really mean? Well, well-rounded is something I wrestle with, and I've been trying to go to the gym and take care of that problem, but I think the well-roundedness she's talking about here is professional. What does well-roundedness really mean? Well, I believe that well-roundedness really talks about our own human condition, which I believe has three dimensions. You can develop all three dimensions. One could say that you are well-rounded. First dimension, I believe, is the intellectual. The intellectual is what you know. It's the things that you study in school. It's, again, how much you know about your job, your career. What knowledge do you have? That's the first dimension. The second dimension would be, I believe, the spiritual. Now, doesn't mean you got to be a church person to be spiritual. It just means that you ought to be tuned into something that goes just beyond what we can hold on to with our own hand and really experience. There's another dimension. Imagine if there was a cat running loose in this room. If I pinned it in a corner, it would reach up and start to scratch me. If all there is what's here and nothing more, it can become very frustrating. So spirituality is another dimension. And the third would be physical. Now again, I'm not much of a fitness guy, even though I've been working on it this year. But when we talk about the physical dimension, it means that you're healthy. You have enough energy to do what you need to do. So being well-rounded would mean, number one, you are smart, you work on your brain. Second piece is that you would be somewhat spiritual. You'd be concerned with things other than just what you can physically touch. And the third would be the physical. Are you in good enough condition, health-wise, to be able to make it happen? That's well-rounded. So her question is, how do I become successfully well-rounded? Well, successful means you can do it well. So here's just a few suggestions. Intellectual. First thing I'd recommend is reading. My goal this year is to read one book a week. I finished my first one, working on my second one. And I can tell you, just taking the time to not watch movies, but to read has made a big difference. There are some things that I teach all the time, and yet the book that I read gave me information that I hadn't thought about in a very long time. So that's the first dimension. Second dimension is to take classes. Take something that engages your brain. If you're taking classes right now, you probably feel pretty good about that. If you haven't taken a class in a long time, it might be good to sign up for something that will engage your brain. The third part of it is to teach people. The more I teach, the more I actually learn. So is there something that you could teach another person? By figuring out what it is that you do well and teaching somebody how to do that, that's a great way to grow your intellect. So really three parts to that. Second, the spiritual. Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. You can do what I do and you can go to church on Sunday. Or maybe for you it's a matter of just getting away from the things that are here and now and just going for a walk, taking some time to meditate, to do some yoga, do something. But develop something beyond just what you can physically touch. And the third obviously is physical. Do something. Go for a walk. Take the stairs instead of ride the elevator. Think about what you're putting into your body. One of the things that I really discovered, it was a day after Christmas when I looked at myself and was just disgusted, is that when I write down what I eat, I'm amazed at how much terrible things that I actually eat. And so by looking at it very carefully, I've eliminated a lot of stuff. I don't think I've dieted so much as I've just watched what I've eaten, and I've just bumped up my exercise. Now the true test will be when I start hitting the road again in a few weeks, but we'll see. Either way, to be successfully rounded, well-rounded, means that you gotta work at it. Work the brain and study, work the spiritual and start thinking about it, work the body, work the physical. That's the three elements. By the way, if you've got the intellectual piece and you feel like you're pretty spiritual, but you can't move in the morning because you're out of shape, you're missing it. Think about it like I always talk about that three-legged stool. All things need to be in balance. You can do that. We're early enough in the year that you can take care of that piece of business, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Tomorrow could be the first day of the new year for you. So work very hard, become successfully well-rounded, just three dimensions of it. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next week on our next Coffee with the Coach.